Walking through Williamsburg this time of year is always enchanting. It was made the capital of Virginia in 1699. Prior to this, that title was just the humble town of Jamestown, some 8 miles south. It wouldn't be until the end of the 18th century that Richmond would be made the state's capital. Today, I will be exploring the grandest building here in Williamsburg, the Governor's Mansion. See, long before the Revolution, as we know, when this state of Virginia was still considered a British colony, a system of governors was set up to lead the system of law, and these governors were always appointed by the crown. So it's the beginning of November, and I've made it to Colonial Williamsburg. I'm going to take a walk around, check out some of the most historic buildings, and maybe meet some old friends. The first of these governors was in 1609, a man named Lord Delaware. And this was long before this large mansion was built, and long before Williamsburg was even a city, let alone the capital. The settlement of Jamestown was where he would reside. Just starting off as a struggling village in 1607, Jamestown would be the de facto capital of British Virginia, until Williamsburg came to be in 1699. Prior to being a town, it was merely a tobacco plantation. Early American crises with famine, disease, American Indian raids, the need to establish cash crops, and lack of skilled or committed labor all meant that the colony needed to attract enough new and responsible settlers if it were to grow and prosper. The governor's palace was therefore constructed between 1706 to 1722 by its first appointed resident governor, Alexander Spotswood. He had directed its construction, which was funded by the House of Burgesses, what was the Virginia government of the time. Supposedly, Spotswood had such grand ideas for the building, wanting to make it comparable to estates in England, that he exhausted the budget for the palace and paid for the landscaping out of his own pocket. Regardless, once completed, it was the grandest building in the county, and it served as the official residence of all following royal governors and lieutenant governors for the state, including Lord Dunmore, who was in office at the onset of Revolution. Every detail of the palace was designed to uphold prestige and permanence. Of course, this place was inhabited by Patrick Henry after he was elected governor of Virginia. After we declared our independence, because Lord Dunmore had escaped from this place when things were getting really heated in 1775, so 250 years ago this year. And that outraged Williamsburg inhabitants. If nothing else, it confused them. So this is going to be a very fun building to tour. There's a lot of independence and early American history here. Once inside the premises, you are first ushered into a side building. Where a guide gives you a quick history lesson, stating how Lord Dunmore had escaped that palace in 1775, and then how afterwards it was Patrick Henry who became the first patriot and patriot-elected governor of Virginia, followed by Thomas Jefferson. The guide also shows us some early sketches and architectural drawings of the mansion. Once inside the grand entrance, you are greeted by this large, marble-floored room, filled to the ceiling with wall-to-wall weaponry. It was meant to awe guests, and these weapons, while fine decorations, are also fully functional. At any outbreak of violence, these arms were designed to be pulled off the walls and used at the drop of a hat. Regarding the opulence, this is likely the only building in Virginia during the 1700s that had such a lovely marble floor. On either side are two doors, which likely were closed upon receiving guests. To the left was the pantry. It provided the butler or housekeeper with a secure and strategic place to carry out their responsibilities. This included fetching and retrieving items to and from the ballroom, or the dining room. Also throughout the rest of the mansion, from which to direct servants and coordinate their work. On the other side of the main entrance, this doorway would have likely been opened to certain guests who were there to discuss political or business matters. This is the parlor. More akin to an 18th century waiting room of sorts, the parlor was a place for business and a setting for polite entertainment. It could be turned into an office for the governor or his clerk, and it could be transformed to an entertaining space for guests. After this, we enter into the hallway, equally aligned with multiple muskets and swords. Then we make our way to the left and take the staircase to the second story. This stairwell is beautiful in its own right. Entering the second-story hallway, we see doors open to the bedchambers. As I said here, the staff informed us that the mansion is staged to look as it would have done on that night that Dunmore made his getaway. So again, they said that this whole place is set up to basically illustrate right before Dunmore's escape or evacuation of this palace. So everything is sort of strewn about, thrown around here and there, or getting packed up. So clothes and papers are strewn about, as if going to be packed. Now, by aristocratic British standards, this mansion is rather small, and it's suggested that Dunmore had to turn certain rooms, including storage, into bedrooms to accommodate all who lived there. This bedchamber is set above the dining room downstairs. It is interpreted as the room of Lord Dunmore's two eldest daughters. The two girls would sleep in the single bed, with the smaller bed being for their governess. this interim room was simply a closet for storage, and a means by which to enter this room. Situated above the parlor, it is interpreted as a guest room for the Dunmore mansion. Now this room, this glorious room, lined with red velvet walls, is the middle chamber. Originally intended as a stateroom, by the 1750s, this room had been a combination of rooms, combined to form a social but also private chamber for the family. By Lord Dunmore's time, his wife very likely used it to spend time with her children and entertain suitable Virginia ladies.
Your talents never cease to amaze.
This is his lordship's chamber. By the 1760s, this room, along with its adjoining rooms, formed a private suite of rooms that were used by multiple governors, including Lady and Lord Dunmore. This is the study. Lord Dunmore likely used this room for two purposes, as both a library and dressing room. Other governors likely used it for the same purposes. I then make my way back downstairs to the more public entertaining rooms. I make my way, as they would have in the 18th century, as we then enter the ballroom. The same remodels made to the mansion in the 1750s that allowed more bedrooms upstairs also allowed this ballroom to become as grand as it is. It was brought to its current splendor when an agent of the king, a man named Lord Beautetour, decorated it. He was royally titled as Lord of the Bedchamber to the king, which means he was up to date on all the latest fashions. The colors of this room had been used by the king in his private chambers. There are portraits of the Restoration King, Charles II, and his queen. On the other side are the royal portraits of King George III and his queen Charlotte. Following the ballroom is this lovely green chamber. This is called the supper room. This room, along with the ballroom, was added in 1752 to reflect the latest fashion of the time. It was designed to serve lavish meals, with its green walls complementing the lush gardens outside, creating a vibrant atmosphere for the guests. In fact, it is through these doors that guests would then enter the lavish gardens outside. And so I head back outside into the fresh, beautiful scene that is Williamsburg in the fall. I finished my self-tour by entering the cellars down below, which kept the same temperature year-round and housed foodstuffs and fine beverages throughout its time. Exciting, because I've not been in the cellar before. Oh wow, it's surprisingly warm down here. This is really interesting because this is the first time for me coming down into the cellar. I never knew it was open. But you can see how they would have stored things here because it stays at room temperature, as it does with any cellar. Overall, a trip to this historic and gorgeous landmark is a trip well made. You can see the mansion for yourself if you ever visit. It wouldn't be until next year, which was 1776, that Patrick Henry would then reside here. as the first American Patriot Governor of Virginia. So perhaps I will visit again for the anniversary, as we continue to march through our country's glorious semi-quincentennial celebrations. Next, I will, of course, post a short video on the stables of this mansion. After all, a study of the 18th century is a study of its horsemanship, because horses were everywhere, especially in a wealthy place like Virginia's former capital. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.